So like I get that he does 0 damage, bro. He hits like a literal potato, not a sack of potatoes, a literal potato. You know, you cook a baked potato and you're gonna try and smash it on somebody's head, it's just gonna squish. That's what I mean by him hitting like a regular baked potato. But it doesn't mean we can't talk about the things that he does do good at. I get that. But there's only one thing we can say that he's good at. And yes, that's a problem. But if you think about it, if he had a kit based off of damage that was top 8, he would go up 3 slots just because of his value with 2 extra lives. Balancing the game. That's what everyone can equally agree on. Though it's probably not going to happen, we can still be, thinking about why they're doing these decisions. They're trying to even out the game. They're trying to make characters different from each other. That's why when they had talked about the thing with like the typings and like saying like back in the day when we used to get regen and they used to heal a lot. It's like my only like main example that they stopped doing, and now every character is healing. They're like practice run, because we've had terrible defense types for LFs. Like Bombku is the only really good one that was on there. And Bombku didn't even perform that well. I mean, he tanked a lot, but he didn't really do much. He was good for a little bit, but he got aged out pretty fucking fast because, defense types do get power creeped faster than others, and that's already bad for Cooler. Is that they're going down a good path. We want this. We don't want to see more power creep. That had happened during the 7th anniversary. That was terrible. We need to move on from that. It's so incredibly bad. But like the fact that we're asking Cooler to be better, yes, in a way that would help the character, but it doesn't help the game in the long run. All right, they're trying to make defense. They're trying to make melee. They're trying to make support. That's why Krillin is a very good support in his own right, but does terrible damage. They're trying to do the things that the typings are actually doing. That's why they're switching from the Kaioken thing. That's why they're not doing a Kaioken Cooler thing, because Kaioken did so well defensively that he almost tanks better than his damage. Almost. They don't want that. Devs called it, but like they want to differentiate the characters that are on that typing. They want to differentiate from a melee type being tanky and a support type doing good damage. They want to separate the actual typing so you can do other things. Separate melee from range. They want to separate support from defense. They want to separate the support from melee. You know what I'm saying, right? That's where we have this middle area here where we have broken, we have balance, and then we have trash. We don't want the trash. We want the middle ground. We don't want the trash. Cooler, some people think, is in the trash, but he's actually in the balance. If he was in the trash is like 20 through 30 is like what the trash is. Then we have mid, and then we have balanced. I think Cooler is right there to the mid, but he's not trash. Okay, we have this ladder that's climbing upwards. All right, broken, great. Balance is like okay. Balance is like the okay. Then we have mid, then we have trash. We don't want to be the trash or really the mid, but we want the balance. Cooler is balanced because he doesn't do damage. If he did damage, that's where I'm saying he would be in the top 8 slot, but people would move him up because of his value of his 3 lives. And that's where I think from the dev's perspective, to the original rant that I made a couple of days ago. When I had made that, I made a very different meaning than what it actually was. And I wanted to make a part 2 to specifically talk about what I meant when I titled the video the Dragon Ball Legends community featuring Dugo. Alright, so that video wasn't to specifically target Dugo. I used him as an example to how the actual community acts and says directly to other people, saying that they want something and then change it right after they had just got done talking about another thing. And I'm gonna explain that, but this is gonna be a more laid back, actual discussion, evidence, statements, examples, things that make sense. Okay, I used Cooler as an example, but that is way too much of a gray area right now, because even making a wrong opinion will contradict everything that I'm trying to make sense here. So I'm not going to use Cooler as an example. I'm going to use the likes of Evo, MEY, Kaioken, Namek Goku, and even Ultra Frieza. Because at least those things are very clear things and perspectives that people can agree with. So I'm going to be using those examples in this to prove my, I want to call it a theory, but I think it's just factual, honestly. And I really want the game to succeed, and other people do too. That's why people are whales and summon on the game, because they love it. They want to make content for it. Hence Dugo, Goresh, Virgil, me even. Jack does whatever. I'm highlighting other small creators out there too, because I, of course, am one of them. So I, of course, support small creators too. And we want the game to succeed. Also, Iron Kane, by the way, my favorite Dragon Ball Legends YouTuber. He's hilarious. You guys need to go check out his content too, but everybody does. That's somebody that people respect. It's funny, and also a little bit of rage bait, but there's a lot out there. But that was a long intro, but let me just get started on why I chose Dugo. Dugo is one of those people that isn't afraid to speak his mind and shit talk the community in general, but we don't shit talk him. And I think that right now, with what he released and brought, 2 days ago, sorry, he posted it on Saturdays, like all of his tier lists for new characters releasing will be. The video is titled My Dragon Ball Legends Mid-August 2025 Top 10 Tier List. This is just going to be one of my points on why this community is so bad. So he made probably one of the worst tier lists of all time, and this is not even hate towards Dugo. Dugo's in my top 5 most liked Dragon Ball Legends YouTubers of all time because of his crash outs. He's hilarious. He's funny. His takes, on the other hand, this time, it kind of proves my theory on what I made last video. He made probably one of the worst tier lists of all time. He put Metal Cooler behind TN and Full Power Frieza. Legends Limited Yellow Full Power Frieza. To be honest, man, sure, but he put Cooler at 13, IT Goku at 14, and King Cold at 15. I mean, sure, but Cooler being that low to me does not sit well, okay, for 2 reasons. One, I'm fine with him being at 10, and you can argue 11, alright? Where I'm currently sitting at with him is 10, but I'm okay to call him a good unit because he's in the 10 slot. 11, I would get in between good and mid. Mid is 13 or, beyond. He's not there. The farthest I'll let somebody go to say is top 12 for Cooler, okay? I was originally saying 7, and with what I've seen from Goresh, I'm sitting at 10, okay? I'm willing to go to 11, and I'm willing to drop down to there, but I'm not there yet. There is no way you're dropping him behind 12. There's no way, okay? Full Power Frieza deserves that 11 spot. Cooler needs to be in between TN and Full Power. Legends Limited Frieza. I keep having to say that, but LF Full Power Frieza to me is either in the 10 slot or the 11 slot. You slap Cooler 12, you put Tien 13. And that's fine. But IT Goku should nowhere even be in the mix of top 15. He's top 15 on a good day, and that's on a good day. There's not many Legends good days out there. A lot of people like to run PvP, and they're usually running the same team. Alright. Proud Mode isn't put into account for Dugoat here. If you're counting Proud Mode, sure. But he disses on Proud Mode every ranked PvP session. He disses on every showcase. So there should be no way IT Goku is there because he's not taking into account Proud Mode because he doesn't play it. He can't say anything about Proud Mode because he doesn't play it. Alright, that's one. So he's taking this into regular rating match standards. Huh? How does that make sense? Okay, so that's one. Two, he put Cell at 10. No. Cooler is better than Perfect Cell. And here's what. Ultra Perfect Cell, and here's why. Jack does whatever. I know you're going to freak out about this. Hear me out, okay? Cooler has terrible defenses. So does Cell. Cell is a punching bag, and so is Cooler. Cell is going to actually get slaughtered by any of the characters that are in the meta right now. Cooler, it has higher value because he at least lives longer. Cell does not. Cell is a glass cannon that does damage, but his damage doesn't even hold up anymore because we got Kaioken, Feet Coup, we've got Ultra Full Power Freeze, we got Namek Goku. He doesn't do much. Namek Goku, you could argue he does decently against, and Krillin, but that's Krillin. That's Krillin, dude. So, like, that's why Cooler is doing what Perfect Cell does for defenses in terms of getting hit. Like, you're getting hit very, very freaking hard, man. Like, so hard. Like, they're both built like a sack of potatoes, of course. Perfect Cell is going to die faster, and you won't be able to do anything with Perfect Cell if you get caught in a nowadays combo against a nowadays team. Don't get me wrong, his prime, Cooler's nowhere near that. Perfect Cell has aged very well for being an Ultra with Red. So, like, with MUI, he survived through all that with MUI in his prime. That's very impressive. He is so unbelievably crazy. He survived MUI in this prime and still remained in the 10 slot for me. He's not there anymore. To me, Legends Limited Full Power Frieza deserves that 10 spot. Being behind TN and having IT Goku on the list at all does not make any sense. And here's the problem with that. I wouldn't care. But he is one of the staples in the Dragon Ball Legends community. And you know what's going to be the problem with that? People are going to agree with him for the people who don't have their own say in things and are just like watchers. Like, I used to be that way. If I saw this now, I would agree and I would say, yeah. And though that's not Dugoat's fault, it's the people's fault for listening to them. But that's the problem. That's the problem with today's community. But you know why people aren't going to talk about Dugoat? And I'm gonna compare these two. So the story on Goresh putting Super Trunks in top 5. The community went crazy about that and dissed on him so hard on all social media platforms. But you want to know why people did that? Because Goresh doesn't make as many mistakes with tier lists than other people do. That's including content creators. He's probably one of the most unbiased. You guys saw what he talked about with Cooler. That man is probably one of the least biases I've ever seen in a biased character. He knows more about the game than probably anybody does. I'm sure he's best friends with Tawny at this point. I'm kidding about that, but you can see the differences. And so that's why when people saw that Goresh put Super Trunks in top 5, they went on all social media to diss him. But you want to know why they purposely did that? Because Goresh makes less mistakes than other content creators. That's a hot take, but it makes sense, okay? With Dugoat here, because he ranked Krillin top 5, people aren't going to talk about that because Dugoat makes more mistakes than Goresh. And that can be said for most Dragon Ball YouTubers out there, Nanogenics, Slaybyx. It's because Goresh, out of anybody, and this is not even arguable, Goresh knows probably more about the game than any Dragon Ball Legends YouTuber out there for a multitude of different reasons, maxing each character out, no matter what they are. I mean, apart from an EX, but like, he still goes into banners wanting to max out an EX character. He has every character, apart from Shallot, to 14 stars. There's some free-to-plays maybe, but he maxed all those out too. I mean, he has not stopped playing the game 14-star in every character. So my thing is that people aren't going to go as crazy about this, but I think this take is worse than what Goresh did in that video. For both of their lifespans, this has been the worst tier list I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've been playing the game for 5+ years. Not 5+ years, that's an overstatement. I started when Legends Limited Yellow Bardock released, but I think that's like 5 years old at this point. It released in like 2020, 2021, maybe around there. So, he then put Krillin at number 5. So this wasn't even the worst thing that I was talking about here. He put Tien, Full Power Frieza, Legends Limited Full Power Frieza, Cooler, IT Goku, and King Cold at 11 through 15. King Cold is fine there, but you could rank him lower. That's the highest you could rank him, though. IT Goku should not be there at all. Cooler should at least be 1 or 2 slots higher, or 3. And then Tien being in the best slots there. I get it, Saiyan Saga is great, but you're running Fiku, alright? You're running Rev Jita, Kaioken, and Fiku, unless if you leader Namek Goku on Saiyan Saga. So, like, it's tough for Tien. Me personally, I would put him above Rev Jita, just because, at least with Tien, when he revives, he does type neutral damage. So, like, I'll just run Tien over Rev Jita if I had them at the same star ratio. But if I have Tien at 3 stars and I have my Rev Jita at 7, so like if I had just pulled Tien, I wouldn't be running him over Rev Jita because my Rev Jita is higher stars, because they're very similar, but Rev Jita does more. But I would just do it for damage. You know, a lot of the matches are going to timer even without Cooler being on a team. And that's just because the characters are now so tanky. Apart from Cooler. And the other glass cannons. So. But yeah. And then 10 slot with Perfect Cell. That's already things that Goresh I didn't really have a problem with when he did his Super Trunks tier list. Super Trunks was the only problem on that list. Nobody else had a problem with anything else. This is already bad. I have 4 complaints, and it's 2 minutes and 56 seconds into the video. Like, look at that. Like, come on, man. Then, you rewind forward. Everything's fine. Then it gets to the 5th slot. You know where the 5th slot is for? Krillin. Krillin is not there. He's not top 5. Either he's baiting the community, or bro just wanted views and purposely did that for clout. I know that's a huge call, but top 5 is not okay. Top 5 is not okay. Not okay. That is terrible. I'm just going to put it on screen because I don't want to have to, like, do that the entire time. But so, reason why I used Dugoat there in the other video was because I actually have problems with what Dugoat is doing. And it's a problem, but it doesn't mean that other people aren't doing it either. Like, I have a problem with him saying that the game needs to be more balanced with characters that are being released. But how can we do that if we have a complaint about every character who doesn't fit in the top 5 segment? Because he said he wanted Cooler to be top 5, and he would have called him amazing. He said he wanted him to be top 6 through 1. But how can we do that? Then we can't balance the game, because then Cooler would have been insane. Because if he was in that margin, people would have ranked him like probably top 3 because of his extra lives. He would have been even more valuable if he did good damage with strikes and blasts and doing insane damage with blues and an ult. If he's top 5 based on his damage and his blue card and his ult, he would have been top 3 because he had 2 extra lives, 2 comebacks. That wouldn't have made any sense. And this is me more relaxed now without freaking out about the video. I'm using my actual head here. So, like, I get that he does 0 damage, bro. He hits like a literal potato, not a sack of potatoes, a literal potato. You know, you cook a baked potato and you're gonna try and smash it on somebody's head. It's just gonna squish. That's what I mean by him hitting like a regular baked potato. But it doesn't mean we can't talk about the things that he does do good at. I get that. But there's only one thing we can say that he's good at. And yes, that's a problem. But if you think about it, if he had a kit based off of damage that was top 8, he would go up 3 slots just because of his value with 2 extra lives. We have to think about it in a perspective of balancing the game. That's what everyone can equally agree on. Though it's probably not going to happen, we can still be, thinking about why they're doing these decisions. They're trying to even out the game. They're trying to make characters different from each other. That's why when they had talked about the thing with, like, the typings and, like, saying, like, back in the day when we used to get regen and we used to heal a lot, or, like, I don't know. That's, like, my only, like, main example that they stopped doing. And now every character is healing, which there's still a need to fix. But they're trying to make characters different. That's why they're probably using Metal Cooler as another, like, practice run, because we've had terrible defense types for LFs. I watched that video, man, where he was, like, being sarcastic with the defense types for LFs. Like, Bombku is the only really good one that was on there. And Bombku didn't even perform that well. I mean, he tanked a lot, but he didn't really do much. He was good for a little bit, but he got aged out pretty fucking fast because, defense types do get power creeped faster than others, and that's already bad for Cooler. But my point is that they're going down a good path. We want this. We don't want to see more power creep. That had happened during the 7th anniversary. That was terrible. We need to move on from that. The fact that MUI is already getting power creeped and the fact of how insane that character is a problem. It is a major problem. It's so incredibly bad. And I think that's what people didn't get in while I was talking about, balance is key. We have this area here where we can use a bunch of different characters, and that's great. This is probably the time where, like, yes, but there's also a reason why Dugo said 11 through 15, because those characters are runnable. And I do think that there is 15 characters that are runnable instead of 10. That's why it's called a top 10 tier list, because usually the people who are under that aren't runnable. They're usually honorable mentions that you can get away with running. But Dugo specifically put 11 through 15 and then honorable mention, I believe. But I don't think he actually did an honorable mention, but I would. Because I think top, like, 25 you can get away with running. And I mean, obviously you're gonna get dogged on, but, like, it's a drag mode game. Like, you can get away with running some stuff in PvP if you're good enough. It's just what it is. But that's my thing, is, like, how do I put this in a way that won't seem mean, but, like, the fact that we're asking Cooler to be better yes, in a way that would help the character, but it doesn't help the game in the long run. All right, they're trying to make defense defense. They're trying to make melee melee. They're trying to make support support. That's why Krillin is a very good support in his own right, but does terrible damage. They're trying to do the things that the typings are actually doing. That's why they're switching from the Kaioken thing. That's why they're not doing a Kaioken cooler thing. Because Kaioken did so well defensively that he almost tanks better than his damage. Almost. They don't want that. They don't want that. That's what that community post that they did on Dragon Ball Legends. I don't know. I saw it. I don't remember where it was from, but it was from the website. But that was from them. It was like actually posted by them. It was like a I forgot what the Legends devs called it, but like they want to differentiate the characters that are on that typing. They want to differentiate from a melee type being tanky and a support type doing good damage. They want to separate the actual typing so you can do other things. They want to separate the melee from the blast. They want to separate melee from range. They want to separate support from defense. They want to separate the support from melee. You know what I'm saying, right? That's where we have this middle area here where we have broken, we have balance, and then we have trash. We don't want the trash. We want the middle ground. We don't want the trash. Cooler, some people think, is in the trash, but he's actually in the balance. If he was in the trash, he would be like top 26. That, in a general basis, to me, trash is like 20 through 30 is like what the trash is. Then we have mid, and then we have balanced. I think Cooler is right there to the mid, but he's not trash. Okay, we have this ladder that's climbing upwards. All right, broken, great, okay. Balance is like okay. Balance is like the okay. Then we have mid, then we have trash. We don't want to be the trash or really the mid, but we want the balance. Cooler is balanced because he doesn't do damage. If he did damage, that's where I'm saying he would be in the top 8 slot, but people would move him up because of his value of his 3 lives. And that's where I think from the devs' perspective, they wanted that, to be honest, because the game evaluates 3 lives. That's why revivals are so good, because revivals can do damage and have an extra life. If you think from a dev's perspective, 2 extra lives. If he has 2 extra lives, we lower the damage, because revival units do the same thing. They do damage, but they only have 1 life, so they have really good damage. He has 2 lives, so if we lower the damage and then progressively get his endurance higher and higher, maybe we can even out the damage for being a little mediocre or even okay. Think about it from the dev's perspective, and you guys will have a whole different take. Okay, because I'm thinking from a developer's perspective, what I just said there actually makes sense. If you think about it, don't get mad because you summoned and wasted your CC. We all knew LF Metal Cooler's banner is ass. That's also a call out from the community. They're mad because they spent CC on something that's not what was talked about during the reveals and stuff. Everybody thought he was gonna be great, and honestly, I thought that too. He is in the balance section, but he's not great. He's not broken, but because he doesn't meet the standard of new units that we're used to, people are calling him trash, because what we've gotten beforehand was an abundance of broken. And not even just abundance, that's an understatement. That shit was ass in its own right of being so broken. We got MUI, Evo Vegeta was trash. Part 2, we got Kaioken, Rev Vegeta was great, and then okay. And then we got part 3, Broken and Broken. Then people started nicknaming Kaioken Goku, Ultra Frieza, and Ultra Namek Goku the big 3. And honestly, they are the big 3. They are the big 3 of fucking ass, bro. Of fucking ass, like broken, like ass. Like we got the ass, and we got the ass, and then we got broken. Like it's so broken, that team, that it's at the ass standard of broken. There's not a lot of people reached here, but Blue Beast did. Though I don't think any of those characters are what Blue Beast did back in his prime. But it is close. It is damn well close, dude. All 3 of them, they're insanely good, dude. And I think that's why people wanted a good purple unit, because we haven't gotten one. But if we think about the teams and things, like, even with LOE, he barely fits on the team, but, like, he does what he's supposed to do, if you think about it in the dev's perspective. A defense type that they're trying to make purely defense. Of course, they didn't want him to do damage, and obviously that's going to be bad. But it's because they're trying to differentiate the typings of the characters being ranged, melee, defense, and support. They're trying to differentiate that. So obviously, after what the fuck they did to Kaioken, obviously they don't want to redo that. I wouldn't, as a player or a dev. I wouldn't. For as a player, I don't want to deal with that shit. And then as a dev, I don't want to continue making characters that people have an issue with. I want to make characters that people are going to be happy to run and look good, but also are doing the thing that they're designed to do, which is live. That's what a defense type is. It isn't designed to necessarily be super, super, super tanky. He still defends. It's just not what people wanted. He still lives forever, but yeah, people are gonna farm damage off of you, and I think that's where they screwed up. But at the same time, they were just trying to be careful because they do want the game to be balanced. So obviously they're going to make some mistakes doing that after their new philosophy that they made. And they want to continue doing that philosophy, which I, as a player, am fully on board with. Do what you need to do to make the game less power crept. And that's the same thing that I mean with balance. Balance is less power creep. And balance, in that same time, that's why I'm fine with Cooler. Alright? And you should be too. Because if he did good damage, he would be top 6 or 7 in the game. And depending on how well he held up because he could do good damage, people would probably rank him top 3 just because of his 2 extra lives. There's obvious reasons to why they did what they did with Metal Cooler, and I think everybody should use their brain on that too. And that's why I titled that video that way, because the content creators have a bigger say in what a unit is doing. But I'm saying some of the creators out there you guys shouldn't be listening to. And there's only one that I can really say if somebody says about, it's Goresh. That's the one. He's made one singular mistake about top 5 Super Trunks, and that was my comparison to Doogo, which he just did something that never should have happened in one video, which was his tier list video. Obviously, there was 6 problems I had with it within the first 5 minutes. And that wasn't even from a biased standpoint. I said I would have been fine if he was 11. Because him being top 10 is an unpopular take. It's not hot, but it's an unpopular take. I would have been fine with him slotting him at 11 or 12. 13's pushing it way too far, especially for what we don't know that they're going to release in the future for Metal Cooler at this point. I mean, all I know, they could be giving him Goku Plat in 6 months, which obviously that wouldn't factor in, but mainly LF Full Power. LF Final Form Cooler that's coming out this weekly reset. So, like, I have expectations. The expectations don't meet during that weekly reset. Obviously, things are going to change. But right now, we don't really know a lot about what they're doing with this. So, like, they buff powerful opponent or something. If he gets, a new awakened equip, obviously it's not going to do much, but it's something, right? People need to be more positive in this community, and that can say for everybody, and not even just in the Dragon Ball Legends community itself, but in a real life perspective too. You think from all sides, not just the sides that you want, but from all perspectives. And that's something that I have, that a lot of content creators and people who aren't even content creators but just play the game need to realize. And from what my brain works, and from what I'm thinking from all sides, the players, the balancing of the game, the power creep, I would rather have a Metal Cooler that we have right now than cause more power creep that wasn't needed but happened during the 7th anniversary. Alright, that was the 7th anniversary that I never want to go back into as a player. It happens for 8th year and I'm probably done with the game, to be honest, because that is never something you want. Even for a gacha game, that is never something. That was a mistake. MUI Goku, Kaioken, Full Power Frieza, and Namek Goku. You could have separated them, okay? You could have, maybe the plans were too late, and maybe they were on a time crunch, which they probably were, and so they couldn't switch it. But that's what gives the Legends so much ability, because from a year gap, they can obviously make some changes about the 8th anniversary from what happened in the 7th. And that's why I'm high in hopes about that. But we don't ever what we want again. But yet, our philosophy has changed, and that's why we're going to be seeing some changes in some units. And obviously, they need to experiment it. If it's a new philosophy for the game and for the devs are going to keep trying until they get and meet that new philosophy, because if they don't make that new philosophy, they're fired. But it's okay to make a singular mistake about their first character. That was defense. This was our first defense character that was released during this new philosophy. I may be forgetting some 1% Sparkings, but this is our first major release that was a defense character for the new philosophy. Because the new philosophy started after Daima ended, and if I'm not mistaken, Demon King Piccolo was not defense. But I'm just saying, it's okay for the devs to make this mistake. And it wasn't game changer like Evo. Evo was worse, and still is a worser character than Metal Cooler, and that will never change, ever. That character was what we call in the trash just from the start. Cooler is not there. Doesn't mean he'll get there. He will get there, probably very quickly, but he's not there. And that's what people need to understand. We need to take in this new philosophy as hopes rather than negativity off of one defense character that we had. Anyway, if you guys all like the video and this continuation of, talking and ranting, I know this was a fan favorite for some people, this, talking type videos. If you guys all like it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I will do more of these in the future. I plan to. But yeah, that's my side of the view on the Dragon Ball Legends community that needs some work. But yeah, you guys all like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.